Hello everyone and welcome to the Pause program. Today I'm going to present to you an introduction for parents. I hope you enjoy it. Just share my screen with you. The Pause program 2020 information session for parents. What is the Pause program? So the Pause program simplifies information on neuroscience, mindfulness and positive education so that both children and adults can use this knowledge in their daily lives to respond to situations that may be challenging rather than reacting to them. And as you can see on your screen, there's a little poster. So often, without the knowledge of how our brain works, particularly our reaction center in our brain, we have a stimulus, whether that's stress or something that's challenged us, something unexpected, and then our centers in our brain that are our emotional centers and our protective centers, they fire and we have a reaction. However, if we learn about neuroscience and mindfulness and positive education from the Pause program, what we end up with is the set of circles below. So you have a stimulus, whatever that may be, and then you pause and understand that your amygdala is firing and sending you sensations throughout your body. And you respond with some strategies like taking some deep breaths, having a drink of water, and then it enables you to respond to the situation. Now, why use the Pause program? So the Pause program teaches about 3 key parts of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, amygdala and hippocampus, and they are responsible for the thinking, emotions and the long-term memory areas in our brain. The kids and yourself will also learn about how to become a pause detective, which encourages us to self-regulate our behaviour by paying attention to the signals that we receive throughout our body. And the kids learn about to identify the signals like fast beating heart, hot face, sweaty lip, clenched fists, wobbly legs, or butterflies in our tummy. And once they've learned about those, what they start to realise is that it's their brain and it's their responsibility. And so both they are able to look after themselves better and respond in better ways, and therefore their well-being and their loved one, adults and teachers around them, well-being improves as well. Now, the information around the brain basics in the Pause program comes from these 2 neuroscience experts from the States. The first one is Dr. Dan Siegel, and he has written many parent books around understanding parts of the brain. One of my favourite ones of his is The Whole Brain Child. Another couple are Yes Brain, which he just released a couple of years ago, and No Drama Discipline. And then Dr. Judy Willis, she consulted on one of the first programs that I learnt about mindfulness and key areas of the brain, which is called the Mind Up program. And also I've read many of her books, which are very informative too. There are 18 lessons in the Pause program. The first 4 focus on learning the brain basics. The next 8 are learning mindfulness strategies, and the final 6 are positive education like gratitude, growth mindset, resilience, kindness, empathy. So the brain basics, as you can see on your screen, there's a poster that we've had made. And to help us learn the 3 key parts of the brain, I've actually linked them to some animals. So the prefrontal cortex is linked to the wise old owl, the amygdala is linked to the guard dog, and the hippocampus is linked to the elephant. So the prefrontal cortex is right at the front here, part of the frontal lobe, and it's responsible for our executive functioning, our decision making, problem solving, and our thinking. The amygdala is deep down into the center of the brain, so the little pink dots you can see on your screen, and that's the emotional part of the brain. It belongs to the limbic system, and that's where we process all of our emotions and we express them. And finally, the hippocampus, which is the orange part that you can see on the little image there, connected to the elephant, is also part of the limbic system, and it's responsible for forming, organising and storing our memories. The students learn about the hand model of the brain, which is just a quick little thing that they can help remember parts of the brain that they're learning about. So this is our balanced brain, and then this is our flipped lid. So in the balanced brain, our amygdala is represented by our thumb, and then our prefrontal cortex, our thinking part, is represented by our fingers. And so wise old owl and guard dog in the kennel. So if we have our balanced brain, that's exactly what we need for learning and playing and being successful in our daily lives. If we have an emotional reaction, we flip our lid and our amygdala comes out and we express our emotions with a reaction, and it's in control, and the prefrontal cortex turns off. So we can't think, we can't make smart choices or solve problems. With mindfulness strategies that we learn from pause, we learn to settle our amygdala, pop him back into the kennel and calm him down. Our prefrontal cortex switches back on, our wise old owl comes back, and we're back to balanced brain again. And it's a really good action that the kids can use to tell you and communicate to you that, hey, my amygdala is not doing so well and I'm getting ready to flip my lid. The kids also learn about the pause detective, and if you do the lessons with your students at home, you'll also learn about the pause detective. And basically, the kids and yourself will learn to pay attention to the signals that you receive throughout your body when your amygdala is getting ready to fire. I often say to the kids, your balanced brain starts to rock, and it's in that rocking motion that you receive these signals. So you might get the butterflies in your tummy, the hot face, the sweaty lip, the fast beating heart. They're the signals that you can receive. And if you act on them, your rocking brain may return to balanced brain. And if you are unable to act on them and you flip your lid, that's okay. Putting some pause strategies in place, like the drinking of water, deep breathing, will help settle your brain back to balanced brain. Now, what is mindfulness? It's quite an abstract term for all of us to learn about. So I've sort of broken it down and simplified it as much as possible. So the kids learn that basically mindfulness is the act of stilling our active mind. So our prefrontal cortex, our little owl, jumps around like a monkey and jumps from one thing to another, always thinking about something else. And so if we're practicing mindfulness, we're settling that monkey, calming him down so our wise old owl can think and pay attention. So two of the definitions you can see on your screen is giving your complete attention to the present on a moment-by-moment basis, paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment without judgment. And these are two of the posters that we have as part of the pause program. Now, the mindfulness strategies that the kids learn, we've actually put into the little image you can see on the screen called the pause process. There are two pilot schools. The students identified 6 strategies or behaviours they would like to use. So the first one is shake the mind jar. The next one is take some deep breaths. The third one is have a drink of water. The fourth one is name the feeling or your internal weather. The fifth one is going to a calm area, either at home or at school, and going for a walk is number 6. So the pause process has 6 strategies, and any of them can be used to calm the amygdala down so the prefrontal cortex can stay on, and smart choices and thinking can happen. So here are the 6 strategies just broken down, and throughout the 18 lessons, the students and yourself, if you get to do them at home, will learn all about them. So the first one is making the mind jar, and the mind jar represents what the brain looks like when the amygdala fires, and all of the glitter flying around is basically all of the information flying around in your brain when you have an emotional reaction. And then the second one is our brains really enjoy watching glitter fall in a jar. It's very soothing for us, whether you're a child or an adult. And so the mind jar becomes the first tool in the pause practice to settle ourselves down. The second process is taking deep breaths. Often I say to the kids 3 deep breaths is a really good number to start with, but sometimes we might need a few more depending on the reaction that we're having. Number 3 is having a drink of water, which is very important to keep ourselves hydrated. Number 4 is naming your feeling or internal weather. So the students do a whole lesson on understanding how important it is to identify how they're feeling, and they can use weather symbols for that, or they can use the correct terminology. Number 5 is going to a calm area just to allow yourself to settle. Usually in the classroom, it's at the back of the room in a reading corner. But at home, you could identify a couple of areas, might be somewhere in your child's room or in the lounge room, or even out in your backyard under a tree. And finally, going for a walk, because moving our big muscles in our legs helps to dissipate the adrenaline and cortisol that is fired from having an emotional reaction around our body. Other mindfulness lessons that the students do in the Pause program look at our five senses and how our five senses is how our brain receives information. So we do an activity on mindful eating, mindful seeing, mindful listening, mindful movement, and mindful thinking. Also in the mindful listening lesson, we introduce another part of the brain called the reticular activating system, which is a really big name. So the kids call it the RAS, and that's a filtering system in the brain stem. So that's the base part of the brain, and it filters all the information that's going into the brain. So that's a really great lesson to go through with your students. Now, being mindful with any activity activates and strengthens the neural pathways in the brain. And the more you practice being mindful in any of your activities, the stronger those neural pathways will get. So this is another poster. And you can take this idea of neural pathways into anything that you're doing with your kids. So anytime you practice a new thing that you've learned, or even one that you've known before, a piece of electricity gets fired along the neural pathway that's responsible for that in the brain. So every time they practice their spelling, their times table, skills for kicking a soccer ball, or anything at all, they're strengthening the neural pathways in their brain, and a piece of electricity is going along that. If they choose not to practice the new skills, the pathways become weaker and they're unable to retrieve the information as fast as they would like. And the final section of the Pause program is the positive education. So this is where we look at daily happiness and positive emotions, personal resilience, being healthy. We look at empathy, kindness, gratitude, growth mindset, and also resilience and persistence. This is just a closing for you. So as our heart sighs with peace while watching the sun kiss the waves as it sets over the ocean, the pauses in our life can bring us peace in the most chaotic times of our day. Thank you very much for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed it.